Can you hear me now at all? Claire, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can actually. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Right, so we'll take that as going through then. So item number 4 is public question time. As I said, there are now 4 public questions, and Mr. Collard is going to be reading all of those. So, Tim, first question from Mr. Gareth Jones.
Thank you. I was supportive of the original experimental traffic order that was implemented outside the surrounding roads at Mirside School. However, the decision to extend the order to cover any access to Sutton Way, Children's Way and part of Wenlock Road means parents who need to use their own transport can no longer access the only viable and safe car park at Mirside Community Centre. I now have to park near and cross a busy main road with several children in tow. With the school having neither the budget or resource to support a walking bus, as well as a lack of communication and support from the Sustainable Transport team, what measures are Shropshire Council putting in place to mitigate the impact of both pupils and parents impacted by this change?
Thank you very much, Tim. And the response, Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jones, for your question. Councillor Kirsty Hurst-Knight, portfolio holder for children and education, and active travel falls within my portfolio for schools. The school street at Mirside was extended due to the inconsiderate and antisocial parking from parents just outside the school street zone. We were in regular contact with the ward member for the area about the issues that were being presented. The initial scheme was put in place so people could access the car park at Mirside Community Centre, but there wasn't enough take-up, and we continued to see issues regardless of alternative car parks being provided. The school were offered support and funding to set up a walking bus, but this wasn't something that the school felt that they could commit to. The Sustainable Travel team have been in regular contact with the school to mitigate the impact of the extension. The information about the extension to the scheme was sent to and acknowledged by the school in August 2024. We offered the school a week's worth of scooter training, which the school undertook at the start of term to encourage active travel to school. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst-Knight.
May I make a point of information? Thank you. Just to say that it is incorrect to say that the school were offered support and funding to set up a walking bus, but this wasn't something the school felt they could commit to. That's not quite accurate. The accurate situation is that the school is working with the Sustainable Transport or the Sustainable Travel Officer very well, and lots of things are being discussed and proposed. The school are unable themselves, as one would expect with the current state of school funding, to provide a walking bus to staff it themselves. At this point, the Sustainable Travel Officer has... No, sorry, I just want to make it clear.
Yeah.
The officer has offered to try to obtain funding, and the school are 100% keen to do it.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure.
Can I come back on that?
Yeah.
Sorry, take this outside the meeting. It was a round of funding that was bidded for originally, so that there are continuous bids going on.
Right. Question number 2, Mr. Collard. Mike Streetley's question, please.
How does the council propose to separate the full business cases for the North West Relief Road and the Oxon Link Road and the traffic modelling that underpins them? Will the full business case for the North West Relief Road assume that the Oxon Link Road is already built and vice versa? If not, will the council be carrying out a traffic modelling of each scheme in isolation?
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Dan Morris to respond.
Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for highways. The council can confirm that the full business case submission to the DFT for the North West Relief Road will be fully compliant with their requirements around traffic modelling. The required scenarios that have been modelled reflect the delivery of both the Oxon Link Road and the North West Relief Road sections. Although the benefits accrued from the North West Relief Road in isolation are the main focus of the full business case submission, the full traffic modelling report describing this full business case methodology in more detail will be put in the public domain at the time of the full business case submission to the DFT. It's to note that the traffic modelling methodology and results have been independently validated by Shropshire Council's Highways and National Highways at planning submission and to the DFT in the preparation of the FBC.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Tim, the third question from Jamie Russell.
How much of the £37.1 million of retained SIL at the 31st of March 2024 noted on page 6 of the annual infrastructure funding statement is Shropshire Council planning to use on the Shrewsbury North West Relief Road?
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Dan Morris to respond.
Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for Highways. SIL funding will be sought to support the scheme as match funding in line with the infrastructure funding statement, and this will be outlined in detail in the full business case to go before council in the new year.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. And Tim, the final public question from Emma Bullard.
The recently published carbon assessment reports for the North West Relief Road show that the amount of carbon dioxide to be mitigated as a result of the scheme has at least doubled since it was put to the Northern Planning Committee. Meanwhile, the applicant still has no quantified or costed proposals for how this mitigation should be done. They note that it will be challenging and might cost double the £1.2 million initially planned. These reports also show that the draft Local Transport Plan 4 is likely to conclude that a business as usual transport future in Shropshire will not yield the required emission reductions. Given that Shropshire Council is committed to owning these emissions and that they look likely to make the challenge of a net zero transport system in Shropshire much harder to meet, will the council now stop all ongoing expenditure on the North West Relief Road and properly consider alternatives to the scheme?
Thank you, Tim. In response, Councillor Dan Morris.
Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for Highways. The council remains fully committed to the North West Relief Road as a key piece of transformational infrastructure for the town and the county. The revised carbon assessment released in November 24 was undertaken to meet the particular requirements of the DFT's full business case evaluation process, which is both new this year and different to that used for planning purposes. However, in order to continue to meet the highest level of probity and scrutiny on this key issue, this alternative calculation formula has been shared with the LPA. As part of the Planning Condition 41 issued by the Northern Planning Committee in February 24, the project is required post-planning notice issue to submit a robust and deliverable carbon management plan. This will be reviewed and approved by the LPA prior to the commencement of works and then monitored and overseen by the LPA in delivery in order to ensure that the scheme is fully compliant with the requirements of both the local planning regime and the wider carbon commitments of the council. We expect no net zero impact arising from the process.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. We now move on to item number 5, which is member question time. The first question is from Councillor Alex Wagner, and Councillor David Vasmer is going to read that on his behalf. David.
Thank you. Pressure on Shropshire Council's finances is reducing critical support to vulnerable people. Would the portfolio holder for adult social care advise how Shrewsbury rough sleepers who require specialised medical services can currently access the resources they need as their dedicated weekly medical clinic ceased at the end of October 2024?
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. So this question actually is under Councillor Carroll's portfolio, not under Councillor Cecilia Motley. The government funding is provided directly to our housing section. Councillor Carroll is unable to be with us today, so I will be answering the question. Shropshire Council accesses central government funding in regard to rough sleepers called RSI 5. This funding is awarded via a bid process. The last bid process was for 3 years, and this comes to an end in March 2025. Part of this funding was being used to fund GPs to hold a surgery in the Ark and meet with and support rough sleepers. Unfortunately, when the Ark changed their model to a referral basis only, a much smaller number of people began accessing the service, and at times the GP did not have anyone to see. The decision was made to change the use of the funding to enable the rough sleeper team to support individual individuals to access a GP close to them. This meant that the funding no longer only focused on those rough sleepers in Shrewsbury, but could be used for anyone across the county. It also meant a stronger emphasis was placed on supporting independence, as rough sleepers were encouraged to register at a local GP surgery and then attend when they needed to. Please be assured that if a rough sleeper needs to access a GP, they will be supported to do this regardless of whether the GP surgery is set up in the Ark or not. The rough sleeper team currently operates outreach across the county, ensuring daily support for anyone who is having to sleep on the streets. We have also recently enacted the SWEP, which is the Severe Weather Emergency Protocol, which is where we open facilities for rough sleepers when the temperatures drop below zero. Do you have a supplementary, Councillor Basby?
Yes, just given that these arrangements are quite new, is there a plan to review them after a certain period of time to
I'm
make
sure there
that...
will be, but I'll take that up with Councillor Carroll on your behalf.
Thank you.
Thank you, or rather on Councillor Wagner's behalf. Question is from Councillor Julian Dean, and Julian is with us this morning. Councillor Dean.
Thank you. Since Shropshire Council declared a climate emergency, what additional offsetting measures beyond any identified in existing arrangements, such as those to do with recycling, have been identified that can demonstrably offset the council's greenhouse gas emissions, and what emissions in tonnes of CO2e have been offset that would not otherwise have been offset? What has this cost over this same period?
Thank you, Councillor Dean. In response to your question, Councillor Ian Nellens.
Councillor Ian Nellens, portfolio holder for climate change, environment and transport. Thanks for the question. As a recommendation of the Northern Planning Committee in February 2024, which gave intent to award full planning permission subject to conditions and the completion of required Section 106 agreements, this matter on issue of full planning notice will be dealt with by Condition 41. This places a requirement on Shropshire Council Highways as applicant to produce a robust carbon assessment plan, excuse me, or CAP, prior to the commencement of works for the consideration and agreement of the local planning authority. Within this plan will be detailed assessments of the project's forecast impacts and a comprehensive management plan that lays out specifically how the scheme's residual impact will be offset through a hierarchy of measures and priorities delivered of these locally in Shropshire. This approach will fully align with the Council's stated climate emergency, and the management of the North West Relief Road's impact will be owned by the project itself, as opposed to being an additional burden on the Council's wider carbon management approach. The current estimate of the North West Relief Road's residual carbon impact is 55,900 tonne CO2 by 2050. On issue of full planning notice, the project will deliver the required CAP and resolve management plan. This will be placed in the public domain and then monitored, assessed and validated by the local planning authority as the project completes construction and the road comes into use. As regards information around the wider work of the Council's climate team, can I refer you to the most recent climate strategy progress report? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nellens. Supplementary question, Councillor Dean.
Thank you. This is a very odd answer because it doesn't actually answer the question at all, which didn't even refer to the road, although clearly that was the context in which the question was being asked. I was trying to understand what success or otherwise we had in terms of offsetting. The only part of the question, of the answer which refers to that, refers us to a report, and in that report there is no detail about any offsetting. There is a list of projects, but even those, only 2 of them have any sense of numbers, either financial or carbon emissions. So this really doesn't answer the question. So my supplementary has to be following the damning external auditors report that stated there has been significant weakness in the governance of the North West Relief Road, not least reporting arrangements to Cabinet and full Council have been unsatisfactory. How can we possibly be confident that these assurances are meaningful, and can we really rely on reducing, can we really rely on our planning enforcement officers to ensure that the council complies with its assurances that it will be able to offset these carbon emissions?
Councillor Nellens.
Yeah, just to give some further detail on the mitigation measures. Councillors will be aware that as of this week, our joint venture with the groundbreaking pyrolysis plant will start operation. There's great excitement about how that will help with our, not only that, with our further council-owned solely owned project coming in the next year or so. We've also secured millions of pounds in home energy grants and measures to support some of our most vulnerable. We've introduced EVs to our own fleet and rolling out EV infrastructure across the county, more than a lot of other counties of similar size. Numerous active travel schemes are now taking place across the county. We've planted 345,000 new trees. We're doing carbon literacy training for a lot of our staff and members. Various carbon capture and storage projects. We've also Shropshire Council is powered entirely by renewable energy. We voted on that last year, even at the extra expense to keep that going. We're also 95% of our lights are now LED, and we're leading with the local nature recovery strategy. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nellens. Councillor Dartmoor's got the next question. Rosemary.
Yeah, thank you. Shropshire Council's determination to go ahead with the North West Relief Road project has long presented a threat to the council. In recent months, Conservative portfolio holders have repeatedly relied on vague uttered funding promises and continued with spending, even exceeding delegated sums approved by council. Despite requests from opposition councillors to pause the project until clarity about funding was available, tens of millions of pounds have been spent. This week has shown the external auditors Grant Thornton warn of recklessness in the council's approach to this financially and environmentally expensive project, classifying the North West Relief Road governance as high risk to the council. And yesterday, a shocking new report was added to the planning portal. This report corrects the projected 62-year life carbon for the proposed road. It is no longer 49,000 tonnes, but has increased by more than 50% to 77 tonnes of CO2 emissions. The report makes clear any attempt at mitigation of the carbon emitted cannot be achieved by 2030, and a new deadline of 2050 is suggested. The cost of mitigation has soared from 1.4 to 8.4 million, an extra £7 million of capital casually notified via a planning report. This project is out of control, governed outside ideal standards of democracy, and should be paused immediately. Will the portfolio holder confirm he will take immediate action to halt all spending and all activity related to the North West Relief Road until this environmentally and financially extortionate project can be transparently assessed by elected members on behalf of the residents they represent?
Thank you, Councillor Dartmoor. In response, Councillor Dan Morris.
Councillor Dan Morris, portfolio holder for Highways. I need to be really clear that the spend on this project to date has used money from grants or income, and there has been no negative effect on any other services that council taxpayers have paid for. At this stage, the only significant financial risk presented to this council would be in the event that the council itself withdrew support for the scheme, as that funding would then need to be repaid from the council's revenue fund. The prime reason we have been circumspect in sharing working budget costs is simply to protect the integrity of our competitive tender process. Put simply, if you were to have your driveway at home resurfaced, you would not tell the companies bidding what you were prepared to pay. Likewise, we are keen to secure the maximum amount of grant possible from the government to support this vital project. The reason the North West Relief Road continues to be developed as a key priority scheme is not simply because the administration of the council recognises the benefits, it is because business and people tell us this scheme is important to them. In that sense, I think those that oppose this critical scheme in support of their own ideologies are in the minority and out of step with the future infrastructure needs of Shrewsbury and Shropshire as a whole. Shrewsbury is the thriving, successful heart of our wonderful county, and it is disappointing that some people want to hold the town back, hold business growth back, and prevent our local road network having the future resilience it needs. Addressing some of the details, all spend is also undertaken within the ongoing delegations given to the project by members through full council oversight. Internal and external scrutiny of the project has been understandably high, and it is important to stress that the Grant Thornton report referred to did not raise any priority matters for further consideration or action by the council. All recommendations have now been addressed, and the project continues to be delivered in line with the council's required governance and oversight procedures. As mentioned previously, the matter of the carbon impact of the project has been appropriately re-evaluated responsibly in line with the full business case guidance issued earlier this year. A full and robust carbon management plan will be submitted to the local planning authority for their approval prior to the commencement of the works, and the project will then be subject to oversight and monitoring of the local planning authority as it progresses into delivery and future use. This will ensure that the project meets all of its required carbon targets around planning condition requirements and therefore the wider carbon commitments of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Dartnell, do you have a supplementary?
I do, thank you. The carbon assessment added to the roads planning application last week switches between two methodologies for calculation, one of which is not current DFT standard. The report says, curiously, this is to ensure consistency. But given this manoeuvre calculates 42,000 tonnes lower emissions reported to the planning authority than is actually the case, the full business case must be calculated using DFT emissions toolkit, which shows higher carbon emissions. Why has the DFT's guidance not been followed in calculating user emissions? Will the portfolio holder ensure the carbon assessment is corrected so that colleagues on the planning committee have access to the correct and current data? Can the council readily absorb an extra 23 million revenue spending? The portfolio holder thinks businesses and most people want this road. A mega project must be managed using current data and facts. Various consultations in 2017 and before have shown a small majority in favour of the scheme, but this support was arguably based on a general belief that the scheme would reduce future carbon emissions, or at least be carbon neutral, and that the council could afford to build it. We can no longer be confident of these assumptions, so will the project be put to public consultation with the full and current facts?
Thank you, Councillor Dartnell. Councillor Morris?
Well, the DFT changed the standards for the carbon, and the only requirement is to put it in front of the planning, the planning committee for notification. So that's the reason why. I have to say that the Labour and Liberal Party's determination to oppose the North West Relief Road at every stage and every twist and turn of the process is quite baffling. What is it that Councillor Dartnell and the Labour group and the Liberal group know that Arriva, the West Midlands Combined Authority, Midlands Connect, Shrewsbury Bid, Shropshire Chamber of Commerce, and Shrewsbury and Telford Hospital Trust, what is it that they know that these organisations don't know and say they want the road? It is absolutely baffling. The population of this county is due to grow to over 400,000, and yet the Labour group, in a privileged position because you have the Shrewsbury MP now, you refuse to help us support, build this vital bit of infrastructure. It is baffling at the very, very least.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Moving on to moving on to question number 4, which is from Bernie Bentic. Bernie, if you'd like to come and join me at the table, please.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair. Shropshire Council declared a climate emergency in 2019, and in December 2020, a corporate climate change strategy and action plan was adopted, aiming for net zero carbon emissions by 2030. It is therefore shocking that Shropshire Council's Trees Department decided to fell a healthy, mature oak tree on a public grass verge in Meal Village on the 25th of October 2024 without notice, which I consider to be an act of environmental vandalism. After incredulous Meal neighbours and I asked for an explanation, we were told that the trees officer ordered the felling of the native oak tree on Washford Road in preference to an adjacent foreign species, sweet chestnut tree. when there was said to be insufficient space between them. After repeated requests by a single resident over an 8-year period to fell the oak tree. The only residents consulted about the felling were those few whose properties were directly behind the grass verge, and there was no consultation with the wider Meal Village residents, local community groups, or myself as councillor, which I and Meal residents consider completely unacceptable. Will the portfolio holder commit to a full investigation with the aim of preventing a recurrence of healthy indigenous trees being felled without consultation with residents of the affected electoral ward, local community groups, and the local councillor? Will the portfolio holder also please instruct the replacement of the oak by another oak tree this winter at a site to be agreed with residents in Meal Village? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bentinck. Councillor Dan Morris to respond.
Thank you, Councillor Bentinck, for your very important question. The oak tree on Washfield Road was located on highway land. Whilst it was felled this October, the decision to do so was taken by the highway officer as the relevant asset manager in this instance, based on the advice of the arboricultural officer in November 23. Shrewsbury Town Council initially attempted to fell the tree in March, but this was delayed until October due to the discovery of nesting birds. In response to requests received by Councillor Bentinck and residents, the tree team leader, who is the council's senior arboriculturalist, has conducted a detailed investigation of the records held by his team and has provided a full explanation of the decision to fell this tree. It has also been reviewed by the service manager at the request of the chief executive. In summary, the resident who lived closest to the tree had been raising inquiries with the council about it since 2015. It was not a protected tree, i.e. subject to a TPO or located within a conservation area, so there was no requirement to notify the LPA and undertake the associated consultations. Likewise, at the time the highways officer took the decision to fell the tree, they were under no obligation to undertake any other consultations, although as a courtesy, officers did consult with the owners of those properties that backed onto the land, and no objections were raised at the time. The decision to fell the oak was taken because, in the professional opinion of the arboricultural officer, which has now been confirmed by their manager, the adjacent sweet chestnut tree was the optimal specimen. It was also considered to be justified given the suburban nature of the site. Officers also ensured that the tree was not felled until compensatory planting had taken place, including the planting of a number of orchard trees funded through the Coronation Living Heritage Fund, which the council's tree team secured and administered. It is considered by senior officers that the officers who took the decision to fell the oak tree were acting in good faith to resolve the long-running issues that a resident was raising. However, it is acknowledged that the decision has subsequently proved controversial, and with other residents and Councillor Bentinck. Therefore, as a gesture of goodwill, the tree team leader will be able to supply a new oak tree to be planted at an appropriate location in the village of Councillor Bentinck's and residents' choosing.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Bentinck, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you. I do have a supplementary question. Firstly, I thank the portfolio holder and the trees team for agreeing to replace the oak with a second one. And my supplementary question is in 3 parts. I would point out that this 8-year campaign by the resident was unsuccessful until recently because it basically had no merit, in my view, and that of the local village people. And indeed, the complainant sold their property and moved in December 2023, some 10 months before the tree was felled.
Councillor Bentinck.
Additionally, my question,
thank you,
which is based on guidance which was issued in December 2023 to all local authorities regarding such trees which are now regarded as street trees and which I will refer to in my supplementary questions. Isn't it true that the Trees and Highways Departments of Shropshire Council ignored DEFRA guidance and the relevant section S96A of the Highways Act 1980 and section S115 of the Environment Act 2021, imposing a duty to consult in this matter of a street tree? Where are the appropriate governance processes in Shropshire Council to prevent such a disgraceful and potentially illegal action occurring? And the final part is rhetorical. Isn't this just another example of corporate negligence by a chaotic, incompetent administration that has quite simply lost control?
Councillor Bentinck, you had a supplementary question, not a statement. Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Morris, I trust that you get the written answers to Councillor Bentinck's question.
I'll ensure that written responses are provided.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, so moving on to item number 6, which is scrutiny items. We have one scrutiny item today. Councillor Claire Wild, I think, is reporting back on the collaborative budget paper that went to scrutiny on Monday. Thank you, Councillor Wild.
Thank you very much. I've just got a few comments to make on the recommendations. There were 3 recommendations. So I'll answer them one at a time. The first recommendation is that we agreed to put forward the themes identified by the cross-party task and finish group for the 25-26 budget. I'll take the recommendations 2 and 3 together. The feedback from the task and finish group and scrutiny is that this process is far superior to the previous alternative budget process and should be continued as a collaborative way of working in the future. And I'd just like to add my thanks to all the officers who've been involved, and especially to James and Ben, who've done an incredible job. And I think it's appreciated by all the parties. And it actually shows what a well-organised and competent team we are. Thank you. And I'm happy to take any questions if anybody's got any.
Yeah, thank you very much, Claire. The item does appear on the agenda at item number 8, but if you've got any questions regarding the scrutiny report, which was, I believe, Councillor Wild, unanimous?
I believe it was, yes, and it was actually proposed by Councillor Dartnell, which was very nice to see. Thank you.
Oh, Councillor Dartnell, I couldn't see any hands.
Yeah, I just want to say clearly we would not have wanted to start where we are. I'm sure that this has been a useful and a positive process for the council to have councillors from each political group working through spending and pressure information supplied by officers. I look forward to continuing the work with particular attention to the third-party contracts, which account for 60% of the council's total spending. Information in this area has not yet been thoroughly forthcoming. The discussion of this will be welcome when we get to it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rosemary. Councillor Vasmer, although you weren't present, but go on.
Yes, thanks, no, I wasn't present, and obviously I must rely upon the reports that I have from my colleagues. But just to say that I do think there needs to be more transparency in the way in which the this process is going forward. I think there needs to be more information, and from what I have heard, not enough is being circulated. Not enough information is being circulated. So,
I completely refute that.
Can I come back on that?
Yes, Councillor Wild.
So, Councillor Vasmer, you weren't part of the task and finish group, so you know it's hearsay, really. I think we're moving at an incredibly fast pace. The officers are doing an incredible amount of work. You know, there was nothing held back. There's no secrets. It's as open, as transparent as it can be. We have all these same information that Cabinet have. So I think your comments are totally out of order, and I totally disagree with what you've said. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wild. You may now disappear, I think, as that brings us to the end of item number 6. Now, as I said earlier on, because we have the leader of the Shrewsbury Town Council here who has another meeting, I'm going to bring forward item number 15, colleagues, if that's all right, which is the grounds maintenance service delegation. I'd also like to bring forward, if you wouldn't mind, item number 16, which is the leisure services review, so that, as I said before, Councillor Thomas can go back to work because he very much wants to speak on this item. Is everybody happy about that? Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Mosley, would you like to come and join us at the table? So, item number 15, I will get this right. Item number 15, which is the grounds maintenance service delegation to Shrewsbury Town Council. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio Holder for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. I'm very pleased to bring this paper forward. I'm looking at the delegation to Shrewsbury Town Council, and I believe this will be the first of many opportunities we will have as the council modernises, changes and devolves services to town and larger parish councils moving forward. I would probably say this is the beginning of what we will do, and it will become an ongoing conversation as we move forward. I know there's going to be a further debate, so all I'm going to do at this stage, Leader, is I'm going to move the recommendations. However, there is one slight alteration in the second paragraph. The delegation of the detailed agreement between Shropshire Council and Shrewsbury Town Council to the Chief Executive, not the Executive Director of Place, in consultation with the Portfolio Holder for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. So it's removing the Executive Director of Place and inserting the Chief Executive. And on that basis, I move the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butler. Do I have a seconder for that one?
Yes, Leader, I'm happy to second.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Mason. So, all right with everybody, I'm going to ask Councillor Mosley, who's the leader of the Town Council, to speak on this item. Councillor Mosley.
Thank you, Chair. And what a joy it is to be back in this scenario after a number of years away from it. I'm pleased to hear the sentiments of the Cabinet portfolio holder for this, because we too at Shrewsbury Town Council have been happy to accept the delegation of responsibilities and the subject to funding and details of the arrangements. And in fact, we've had meetings with you, Councillor Picton and Andy Begley quite recently to express the view that we're hoping to be able to play a part in overcoming some of the problems that will face residents as a consequence of some of the actions that the council is taking relating to the financial circumstances it finds itself in. However, there is one part of this paper that we take umbrage at and would wish you to reconsider, and that is surrounding paragraphs 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4, because that sees the removal of the maintenance of the golf course, which we've been proud to do for ever since its inception. Both some people have been involved in it at Shrewsbury Natcham Borough Council, and obviously at Shrewsbury Town Council since the unitary authority came into being. That is being proposed to be taken out of this agreement and given, I think, to Kier, following some discussions with them and also the rejection of the offer by another leading provider of those services. So we've been offering to play a role in mitigating the impact on residents of the financial situation that Shropshire Council finds itself in. We have actually, and you'll see this within the report, accepted a £250,000 reduction in the fees that we will charge for maintaining the public realm, out of a contract worth 1.6 million. So that's a very substantial reduction in the charges that we will be making, and a very useful support for the spending reductions that the Shropshire Council is having to make. We are very much looking forward to further discussions on the overarching proposals within this document, and to join in a new agreement for the delegation of those services. We have, however, as I just alluded, been very concerned to hear recent reports that the golf course was to be taken out of the package, and now in this paper that plan is confirmed in the recommendations to Cabinet. And I have to say that our Finance and General Purposes Committee on Friday evening was entirely unanimous in having some disagreement about this move with respect to the golf course. I know that Helen Ball, our town clerk, has written to you, Chair, to express the views of the committee in some more detail, and I'm here to concur with those that letter and add my own and the committee's point of view. We wish to retain the service delivery, and indeed may wish to further review opportunities for the transfer of that asset to the town council to better manage and operate the facility to the advantage of both councils and, of course, members of the public. I have to say that we are considering, therefore, making a community asset transfer request, and at least wish for the golf course to be returned to the list of delegated services. Now, we as members of the town council are aware of the critique which APSI, which is the Association of Public Sector Excellence, made about certain aspects of the golf course maintenance programme. And we know that Helen, and we are aware that Helen Ball actually made a response to that critique with some of the issues clarified, and also additional perspectives on the way in which that programme, the maintenance, has been managed, added. And indeed, she goes on to identify changes in operations which can be made where necessary. Members therefore believe that further discussion is required to ensure that significant mistakes are not being made. The APSI report actually also states that significant improvements could be made if the town council actually owned the site and the services. So, quote from their report, they have a strong record of success with assets that they own, and this may be an option if retention of the work by them was seen as a favourable option overall. This aspect, I think, within that report has not been given as much serious consideration as it should be. Overall, of course, you know the great added value that an extensive partnership working in recent years has brought to both councils and the town. We actually have ambitions, and you'll hear about this later, to further add support to that work, particularly in street scene public realm operations throughout the town. And on behalf of the people of Shrewsbury and its hinterland, we want these opportunities and the quality of service to be maintained. Basically, I'm asking for you to reconsider paragraphs 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4. 5.2 because it refers to an appendix of areas for work within the delegated contract that does not involve the golf course. 5.3 because it specifically refers to the golf course, and part 5.4, which is the final paragraph in that section, the removal of the golf course maintenance from the schedule. We do ask seriously to consider this and to remove those clauses so we can have better and more extensive discussions about the opportunities. To some extent, we are enjoying the partnerships that we've developed in recent years, the Big Town Plan, the movement strategy. We are already meeting gaps in the services that Shropshire Council is having difficulties with, winter maintenance, for example, a host of examples. And at the same meeting where we discussed the delegation in this respect, we did actually decide that we would allocate £20,000 to help complete the development of the diversion on the Danner footpath, to remove that expense from the Shropshire Council. So please, it appears like a bit of a kick in the teeth to us in this time when we're holding out the hand, trying to help and wanting to maintain a strong and successful partnership which adds value throughout the services that we offer and many of those that you offer too.
Thank you, Alan. Have I got any other speakers? Rosemary?
Thank you. With the exception of paragraphs 5.2, 5.3 and 5.4, the Labour...
I'll just stop you there.
Yeah.
I think you might be looking at the draft one that was sent to you.
Right.
5.4 doesn't exist, but 5.2 and 3 are there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's okay.
We'll go with 5.4 then, as it doesn't stand. The Labour Group fully supports this initiative, which provides an appropriate dovetailed arrangement moving from the current SLA. I note the Town Council has agreed to a substantial financial cut while in continuing to provide high quality services. I just want to add some caution in how over time and geography this sort of arrangement may impact on areas outside the county town, where other smaller town and parish councils may not be able to provide a similar safety net for community services. The golf course is an important recreational site for local residents. It's in my division. The idea of transferring maintenance to the Kier contract seems to run counter to the council's need to act to secure its financial position, which is presumably the driving force behind this wish to delegate services. This is mostly a positive move that will benefit Shrewsbury communities. It is vital we put Shropshire residents first, and the agreement is a good start. But I would strongly object to removing the golf course from the Town Council's portfolio of works. More than 2,000 new homes have been built or are being built in this segment of Shrewsbury between 2013 and 2026. People need green space and recreational facilities. The golf course is part of a green corridor connected to the Rearbrook Nature Reserve, providing an essential part of a linked series of natural areas residents and wildlife can and do enjoy. The natural corridor runs through several residential areas in the south and southeast of Shrewsbury from a few metres from here, where we sit today, right out to Millbrace and beyond, connecting thousands of residents with the river environment and this precious wildlife setting, all managed well by the Town Council. Town Council is well known for being focused on climate change and nature recovery, which with a very active standing committee working on these twin crises that are of major importance to us all. This amenity should remain in the good care of the Town Council for the sake of all who play golf there and all who use the facilities regularly.
Thank you, Councillor Dartmouth. Councillor Dean, then Councillor Asma.
Thank you very much. I support the comments of my fellow town councillors, absolutely, but I wish to just make a point, a more general point as on behalf of the Green Group, which is really just about the context that this paper is coming to Cabinet in, which is one where we, possibly next week are going to see a white paper around devolution. And it seems clear to me that there's a real risk that local places are going to lose more and more control over their own services and over their own decision making. And so I'm appealing to Shropshire Council. The Green Group previously put in a motion saying we needed to have a new protocol, a new working relationship with all our towns and parishes. And I think all the market towns in Shropshire ought to be cognizant of the risk that powers could be potentially sucked up and held somewhere like Stoke or Telford, and that's a real threat. So I think that I welcome this, apart from the bit about the golf course. It was unfortunate that perhaps working towards this was rather a clunky exercise, and I think that it would be really useful if Shropshire Council could learn from that and look to develop a relationship with its towns and especially with its market towns, but with all the parish councils, which is a really collaborative and positive one, so that as much local decision making as possible can be retained.
Thank you, Julian. Councillor Asma.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I support the comments that have been made about Shrewsbury and about the need for the town to retain maintenance of the golf course. I think that's very important, and I welcome the report here today. And particularly, I want to pick up on the comments that Councillor Butler made about looking to do similar exercises with town councils and with larger parish councils. And I think that's really important. I think that's the way we should go in the future. And I hope that we can actually turbocharge that approach, because I think it has taken some time to get this Shrewsbury Town Council report forward and develop some of the ideas. So I hope we can actually turbocharge that for the future, because I think that's the way to go, to give more people, local people, more control and influence. One last thing, and I will say this, but I hope as far as the golf course is concerned, that no consideration is being given to selling off any part of the golf course for development. That's my suspicion. I think the suspicion of a lot of people I've spoken to, and I hope that the portfolio holder could probably give a statement as to say that is not true.
Councillor Vasman, thank you very much. I sat here in I'm sorry, Councillor Butler, but I'm, slightly hopping about a few of the things I've heard today. Firstly, let me do the positive bit, because I am really, really appreciative, Councillor Mosley, of the relationship between our two councils, and actually the relationship between councillors as well, and also between the offices and to Helen, who's the clerk of the town council. We have had really good meetings, and I know officers who are also either in the room or listening in online have also had really good meetings with you, and there will be more of this going forward. So what I'm going to say is, and I'll come back to Councillor Vasma in a moment, but what I am going to say is that this, I believe, is a point in time, okay? But I'm also going to be extremely honest with you here. The reason that the grounds maintenance of the golf course is being removed from this report is because of the standard and the quality of the maintenance that has been taking place over a significant number of years. Please do not think for 1 minute, and if I look around the room, that we have not had long discussions about this, because we have. And it was decided that we would move, and the reason that Kia's name come up, Kia is a big company who have lots of different contractors. They have specialist golf course contractors. I personally believe that there is a much bigger role for the golf course to play in terms of bringing in, not just washing its face, but actually bringing in income. And that is going to need a completely different way of management. But what I will say to you is, I am not going to change the recommendations on here, but I would like to suggest that we review this, because I think the one thing that the SLA says to me, and we talked about this at our last meeting, is that actually things can be added to it in the future. So I would very much like to suggest that we go back and look at this at a future time. But at the moment, I am not willing to remove the golf course or rather leave the golf course in the SLA. As far as some of the comments that I've heard today, and Councillor Dean, I don't disagree with you. I think the white paper, which I'm now told may well be after Christmas, when that white paper comes out, and Councillor Mosley, I'm sure, will confirm this. One of the things I said to him at a recent meeting was, we need to look at what facilities are going to be held where, because I think as things change, things will get sucked away in different areas. But the one thing I will absolutely say is that I got an impression during those conversations that we were looking to close the golf course. We absolutely are not. We are absolutely not looking to develop the golf course as anything other than a golf course. And I can tell you that categorically. I don't know what this thing about a community asset transfer is, because I don't actually believe that it might tick all the boxes for a community asset transfer. But I don't see why you would need a community asset transfer, because that is for protection. You have nothing to protect. The golf course is going to be managed as a golf course, not for development, not being sold. I can give you that absolutely categorically now. So I don't know why you would need to do a community asset transfer. Councillor Vasma.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say that the rumour I've heard that part of the golf course will be sold off, and that just a rumour, It's just a rumour. So I'm very pleased about the statement you've just made. That's really excellent. But could you confirm that you're talking about the whole of the golf course and we're not going to reduce it to maybe to a 9-hole?
Completely mistaken, Councillor Vasma. A part of the golf course was removed some time ago, which was the pitch and putt course. And that's the only piece of the golf course that has ever been considered. So I don't see the point of you trying to take account community asset transfer out on something that actually all we want to do is to actually improve the quality of the golf course. I don't get it. I'll let you come back.
About reconfiguring the design and the number of holes and the extent of the challenge of the golf course. And I believe that that discussion has taken place, and people will obviously put 2 and 2 together and perhaps come up with a figure that's more bigger than 5 or 6 or 7. However, that's by the by. I'm disappointed that you've not been able to take those offensive clauses out, and well, obviously discussions can continue, and I think we'll probably have to consider whether or not the town council, asking our colleagues on the Shropshire Council whether a call-in isn't required to have more extensive discussions about it within scrutiny.
I mean, I just, I mean, you know, it's your prerogative if you want to call something in, but it will delay the SLA.
Well, that's one of the considerations I have to take into account. But I wonder how many people around this table have actually read the Abbey report. And I also wonder how many people around this table have read Helen Ball's very comprehensive critique of that report and the points that she makes within it. And the points involve not just rejection of what they're saying, but also how we can take steps forward based on some of the points that might have some validity within that report. So I'm also saying, Leslie, that this decision is premature. I don't feel it is an important issue, principle, quite apart from the practicalities and the implications of it. And I don't feel as though it's had enough consideration at this point in time.
Councillor Mosley, what I would say to you is we have discussed this on a number of occasions, not just in Cabinet, but also detailed conversations with officers. It is the officers' opinion, and I do not disagree, that the complaints that we have received over the years have led us to this decision. So, you know, if you wish to call it in, that is absolutely your prerogative to do so. But I am confident that we are taking the right decision at this present time. And then
is there any indication of the costs involved of employing Kia to maintain the golf course? Has that been considered? Has that been any idea?
Sorry, the cost. No, I don't
as compared to the town council.
I don't have that information here. I don't know I don't suppose Mark has either. That's too detailed information. But to quote from the Abbey report, with the potential income stream being affected as it currently is, it is difficult to make a case for the retention of the current maintenance arrangement beyond the term of the current agreement. That is what Abbey said. That is not just Abbey, that is being backed up by users of the facility. I don't want to get into a slanging match about who said what and what said who. What I'm saying is we have taken this very, very seriously, and you know, we will review this, I'm sure, going forward, but at the moment that is not, the golf course will not remain in the SLA. And I actually said that at the meeting, Alan, if you remember. Rosemary, final one.
Yeah, just to say, is there any option if this were to be decided on today, is there any option to take into account the comments that Helen Ball has made, the town clerk, Shrewsbury town clerk has made, in terms of modifying how the town council run the golf course currently?
I'm going to take some of this off of line with both of you actually after the meeting, but what I would say is those comments have already been taken into account in the discussions that we've had. Okay. And I meant what I said at the beginning. This is a point in time, this SLA, okay? But at the moment, our view is that we should take the golf course out of the SLA. There will be a chance to review that, but at the moment that is the route that we're going down. Councillor Macy, did you want to say anything as seconded before I bring Councillor Butler back in?
More slightly on the different point of the devolution side of it. Obviously, there was more of a need in terms of timescales to agree something with Shrewsbury, and given the current arrangements and the rest of it, I think Will might have something to say on it. But I think my thing is, I get the desire for more of the devolution to come down, and I get probably the clunky nature that it's been and so on. And yes, I know that those leading this process are taking those lessons from it. I think my comments personally would be, I'd rather have a process of, at the moment, we've gone through a great big period of change, and trying to do this at the same time of that probably would result in just a continuing clunky process. But I agree, if we can get a process that's actually clearer and more straightforward, not trying to do it all at once, but doing those, we'll probably get more speed of getting that devolution through doing that, rather than trying to do everything at once. Does that make sense? Or am I? I'm probably not explaining it well, but I don't disagree with the principle, the same as the leader, of how you do it. It's just resourcing it appropriately, that you can actually work through that process in that smooth way that it should be done, rather than trying to run a number of processes at the same time.
Yeah, and I think it's easier in some cases working with the town councils, because we're working with much smaller sort of facilities, where you've got Shrewsbury is obviously particularly complicated because there are so many moving parts. Councillor Butler.
Just a couple of points to finish off, and really welcome the debate, Leader. I agree with Councillor Vasmer about the town and parish councils, and we're already working with many of them on a slowly basis, and any of them that want to bring other further projects forward, we would welcome that as well. In respect of the golf course and reading the report and talking to officers, from my perspective of somebody who is sitting outside the box, this is actually about making the golf course better. It is about making the service for the people of Shrewsbury that use the golf course better, and to get more people to use it and get better income in for the council. But once we've done that and we've got that up to that standard that we wanted, however, when that contract is coming to an end, further conversations could be had once we know where we've got it up to. But in history has told us since 2009, we have been let down. So we have got to make changes for the benefit of the people of Shrewsbury. But as I said at the beginning, this is the start of the journey and the start of the conversation. It might not last forever. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Okay, I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 16. Councillor Thomas, would you like to come and sit in the warm seat where Councillor Mosley's just vacated? This is the Leisure Services Review consultation. Councillor Rob Macy.
So, thank you, Leader. So we're considering the report that's in front of you of the Leisure Services Review, specifically around Much Wenlock Leisure Centre. I think we all agree, I'm not going to go into too much detail on the actual report itself, but I think we all agree the benefits of leisure across Shropshire and for our residents. And we all agree that there's an importance of having a network of centres across the county that are available to our communities for their use and to enjoy. We have to be moving towards more sustainable operating models, and that's in twofold. One, in terms of the actual centres and the funding that we put in, and also the wider point of, we've all talked about and agreed through things like the collaborative budget, the need for a sustainable council, so we can protect that wider range of services that we provide to the public whilst meeting our legal duties. So the challenges specifically around Much Wenlock that bring this paper in front of you at the moment is, obviously we have an identified need within our financial savings to look at all options. I think the phrase "no stone unturned" has been used previously. With this one, the centre's sited within the school grounds, and the necessary accommodations we have to make for that in terms of the use of the school and the safeguarding that have to be observed. The facility has multiple elements to it, including a pool, which, as we've discussed previously, are expensive to operate and run. and the contractual arrangements place some financial and sort of operational strain on both parties involved in trying to run the centre and operate it. These challenges limit the options, or have limited the options, around the financial sustainability and options we might have in other centres in terms of developing use and business cases and so on. So as the paper sets out, what we're saying is, at this point, we do currently provide a subsidy to Much Wenlock Leisure Centre, but we are open to looking at what are the options we need to take forward. You'll see in the paper that it's stated that we should take forward at least one of those options should be that we look at serving notice to the school, which is 12 months. On top of that, given the timings of the contract and so on, it wouldn't actually come into effect till 2026-27 financial year. So there is a significant period of time before that would come into place. But we are looking at, in terms of our way forward, have been looking at options. We want to present those to the public to get that feedback from them. You'll note in the report that we have had conversations with the school, who are keen to look at continuing community use. I know, for example, that obviously Councillor Dan Thomas is here today, and he's very involved with the community. He can bring those together. He can come and speak to us and let us know what their thoughts are and involve who we need to in this. And I think that's what we want to look at is what are the options for creating sort of that use, whether it's through the school or whatever other options we need to look at. But at this point, this opens that conversation to be had, and we can look at what comes back in terms of the consultation. So I suppose with that, I'll move the recommendations, but wait to hear from contributors.
Thank you, Councillor Macy. I'm happy to second this report. Councillor Thomas, go on, you can go first.
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet members, many Much Wenlock residents, including myself, know that the main reason the leisure centre's income is comparably less than other centres across the county is because members of the public cannot use it during school hours. Far from being the heart of the community, the leisure centre is closed mostly when people want to use it. You wouldn't run a business like this. In fact, many mainstream gyms are now open 24/7. Not only is Much Wenlock's leisure centre hours reduced to avoid school time, it will also be closed from the 23rd of December to the 2nd of January. And I'm sure I don't need to remind people that Much Wenlock is the birthplace of the modern Olympics, giving it the best sporting heritage of anywhere in our county. This is a valued asset for the town and the surrounding communities, but has not been used to its full extent. As a result, its financial performance falls well short of its undoubted potential. I was still a student at Williambrook School when the construction of the new facility started in late 2008. The development and execution of this construction projects were managed by Shropshire County Council. Our current unitary authority did not exist. In the consultation that took place at the time, it was decided that the school campus would be fenced in the interests of safeguarding, despite vociferous objections by those who could see the consequences, and we are left with what we have today. Shropshire Council does not manage this facility well. When it opened, there were classes and activities such as Zumba. They've all gone. And even when it's open, reaching someone on the phone is difficult. I've had residents book the Muga, the multi-use games area, weeks in advance, and then they turn up to play the sport, and no one at the leisure centre knows anything about their booking. I've taken my son swimming, only for both the changing room locks to be broken and the actual lockers to be broken for where our clothing would go. This facility has been left to deteriorate, and it shows. During recent pool heating refurbishment, members' direct debits were cancelled, and they've had no contact since. This is how you lose customers. Of course, I understand the need for Shropshire Council to find savings to address the rising demands for social care. But as the local councillor for Much Wenlock, my priority is to try and find a way of getting a deal that works for our community. It is worth mentioning an obvious truth, that the fitness benefits of a leisure centre open when people, especially older people, want to use it, could significantly benefit public health over time and reduce reliance on care in later life. Prevention is better than looking for a cure. It may not be all doom and gloom. Discussions between the Free 18 Education Trust, which runs Williambrook School, and Shropshire Council indicate they are keen to try and find a way to continue the community use should the local authority money be withdrawn after the consultation period. All parties are very receptive, and any suggestions or comments from the community and stakeholders are most welcome. I hope that by working together we can find a way to maintain community use of the leisure centre, but I ask Cabinet to wait before undertaking this consultation so an alternative way forward can be agreed upon before hanging this sword of Damocles of the future of Muchwellock Leisure Centre. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I suppose one of the points that I would pick up is that the reason for doing this consultation actually is to find out what else other people think. We know that we're talking to the school and that those talks are going very positive, and I thank the school for that. But actually you raised some really interesting points, and I think part of the issue, as you quite rightly say, is that the leisure centre, unlike some of the other joint use centres, is not open during school hours in any way, shape or form, and that makes it very difficult. I also actually remember the discussions that went on around that facility when it was first opened. I think for us, I might leave Councillor Macy to speak a little bit about the maintenance, but I think, you know, I'm not naming, shaming and blaming. I'm sure there are faults on both sides, but what I would say is, as we've experienced in other joint use centres, the wear and tear on facilities that are used day in, day out by schools is very different to the wear and tear of facilities used by the public. And I think, you know, that's something that we've certainly been, you know, talking to the school about. But I want to hear what other people think. You know, the last thing any of us want to do, Councillor Thomas, is to close a facility that the public use. And I am hopeful that we will find a way forward that will actually suit all of us. I don't know whether it's even possible now to disaggregate the leisure facilities from the school. It may be, I don't know, but it might be something that's worth trying, because you're absolutely right that there is a huge audience in Much Wenlock for facilities, but it's daytime use, and that makes it very difficult.
Sorry. I appreciate this item is about a consultation, but the underlying intention is clear, and it's not a good thing for communities in Shropshire Council. And I take note of what Councillor Thomas has said and what you've just said, Leslie. It's shocking to think that any 14-year-old facility could close to the public, let alone one with such historic connections to the modern day Olympics, as previously mentioned. With plans approved for 1,000 new homes, or more than 1,000 new homes, to be built at the former Ironbridge power station just a few miles away from Williambrook School, the proposal to consult on closing Much Wenlock Centre to the public seems very short-sighted. In short, the financial savings the proposed changes offer seem minor when compared to likely increased transport costs for children's swimming lessons, the repayment of capital funding to support England should there be a reduction or a closure of services to the public. There is also the shortfall of the healthy people aspect of the Shropshire Plan. We've just finished talking about the Council's wish to improve usage and therefore income from the Mill Golf Course. The same applies to this sports facility. Shropshire Council can either throw in the towel without fighting, or it can act to save this facility for the benefit of all who live locally and further afield. We would urge that another solution be found that ensures this centre remains open to the public in South Shropshire, to the future public, large numbers of whom will soon be living close by, and to the children who learn to swim there.
Thank you. Councillor Hersnott.
Thank you. Can we be clear, because the political spin is that the decision has already been made? This is a paper to consult, which will only strengthen the argument. Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Schools are working incredibly hard with the relevant officers. I'm from Bridgnorth, as you know. There's a really workable model of the leisure centre there. That's not been without problems to get that to where it is now. Let's be honest. And as you say, the wear and tear of school children using the facility all the time. So please don't think that this is a given and a decision has been made. I take offence at that. A lot of work is going on, continues to go on, and I will vote for the consultation today because I want the people of Much Wenlock, the wider community, to tell us what they want and add a strength to the argument while work continues. So thank you, Councillor Macy, for all that you're doing, and Councillor Thomas.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Basma?
Yes, thanks very much. And I very much agree with Councillor Dartnell in her comments about this. And it's a shame. One of the problems, I think, Councillor Kirsten was saying that, that the closure of it is not a given, that you are considering all options. But it's a shame that in the recommendations, closure is the one thing that's specifically mentioned. And really, what I think it would have been sensible done to have a consultation where you had a real alternative option of keeping it open, having got an agreement with the school. So I think and hope that if you agree this today, that you will still kind of do the consultation with the school and come up with maybe a real alternative option which saves money and also gives better facilities to the community.
Thank you, Councillor Basma. Have you ever heard that phrase, you can't do right for doing wrong or doing wrong for doing right? If we hadn't have been very specific about what one of the outcomes would have been or could be, you would have been really critical of us. End of story. I have a proposer. I have a seconder. All those in favour?
Sorry.
Oh,
I was. It's all right. I was waiting. I just wanted to. You asked me to just address the maintenance part of it. The maintenance, you'll see in paragraph 7.9, the academy is responsible for the repairs and maintenance of the centre and procuring the utility suppliers, and Shropshire Council engages a contractor to do the swimming pool plan. And then the costs for the repairs and maintenance and so on and split. And that's what I'm referring to, as the leader said. It's quite a complicated arrangement for how we're doing that and so on. So I think in terms of this, absolutely, the conversations are ongoing. What we're saying to the community is absolutely, and as Dan has sort of put across very well, in terms of let's get people around it, find a solution. I'm sitting here, I'm kind of glancing at the member in Weymouth. They have a different arrangement again. And it's what can you find working with the community that works for them and so on. And that's what we want to do. And I take the leader's point of, if we can work together and find those options, additional options that we can put forward and then consider, or it leads on to further thinking and so on, that's where we want to go with it, if we can find a way. But it's quite responsible to formally sort of open that process and to get people talking about it. And it's quite right that we set out all the options in terms of the council side as well. So I think then you've got that. So I wouldn't want people to think this is start and close of something. The whole point of doing the consultation and the thing of options and working with the school and so on is an ongoing process. And as I say, we'll fold local members, the community and so on into those discussions about it. But it's got to be something. It's clearly it's an issue at the moment. It's not delivering what people want it to deliver. It's sort of not financially. It's a bit of a struggle as well. So that's the bits that need to be resolved. So. But yes, on that one.
Thank you, Robert. And just because the school aren't here to speak for themselves, but let's be clear, the school really want to retain community use of that facility. So we're not closing it. It's just they as they've made keen, they're very keen, they're very willing. Yeah. I believe they already have another pool in their trust as well. So this is not something that's brand new to them. And we are quite hopeful of having those conversations, but it's going to take everybody putting their shoulder to it to have that conversation. So yeah. Right. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Thomas, thank you very much. Okay, so now moving back to the original running order. Item number 7, setting the council tax base for 25-26. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio Holder Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. Every year, we as a council have to understand how much income we will create from our council tax base. And obviously, with more houses being built, we have to do a calculation on what that base becomes and how we can then foresee what our income will be. The paper effectively is a housekeeping paper, which we bring forward to Cabinet and then on to Council. I don't expect to spend a lot of time on it, and I'm quite happy just to move the recommendations as set out in item 3. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that?
Councillor Nell, second.
Okay.
Yeah, just a quick question, really. I wondered if Guillaume, you could please give just a brief explanation of the criteria and the sums involved in the discounts listed at 2.4 C, D, and E.
Well, if Councillor Butler can't, I'm sure I've just promoted him again. I'm sure James can. Get to the right bit in the agenda.
C, D, and E. James.
A bit more than that, please.
Yeah.
To be honest, through you, Chair, would it be better to take an explanation outside of Cabinet?
Okay.
And because they are quite detailed, and I haven't got the detail with me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that would be better to do it that way, I think.
Could I come in as well? We've often had this conversation annually at this event. And I've always proposed that if there is any issues that councillors wish to change in regard to the discounts, that gets put onto the scrutiny work programme to be looked at. I can guarantee with you on the Poverty Action Working Group, which I sit on, working with Citizens Advice Shropshire, poverty groups and everything else, we look at this as a regular basis and we actually see how it's funded. Part of the problem is if we're looking at the Household Welfare Support Grant, we can't direct fund this, but we can give benefits to people who are struggling afterwards, if that makes sense. So if it's something you want to do, get it onto a scrutiny work group, subject to the conversation you have with James afterwards.
All right, Rosemary. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I have a proposal and a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 8, which we've already touched on, the collaborative budget. Councillor Gwilym Butler.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just winding up my laptop. Be with you as soon as I can. Chair, item 8 and item 9 this year, I almost think we could bring them together, but obviously we'll talk to them as they are set on the agenda. I have to say, after a couple of months working on the collaborative budget, I'm really pleased on how everybody has worked together. And I would firstly like to thank James and his team and Ben and the officers. The finance team are under a significant amount of pressure, but having to talk to one group of people instead of 4 groups of people has saved an awful lot of time from their perspective. I'm happy to move the recommendations from this, and we'll probably talk more about it as we move into the next paper. So, following consideration put forward to the Cabinet, the themes identified by the cross-party task force should be taken into account to the development of the council budget. Provide feedback to the Cabinet on, sorry, I'm reading the wrong one. Accept the themes identified by the cross-party and Finnish group. So we're accepting the themes. Accept the feedback from scrutiny regarding the alternative budget arrangements. And the final one, 3.6, I would like, it says consider and confirm whether the collaborative budget approach should be adopted in future years. I would happily confirm that it should be, from my perspective, because obviously if there needs to be a change, it could always be changed again. Am I right, Mr. Collard?
Well, strictly speaking, Councillor Butler, it is council that decides.
Right.
But the recommendation from Cabinet is that it stays.
Yeah, okay. Well, the ethos is there anyway, which I'm moving forward to members, but I'm also happy to have the debate with those that have taken part. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to second this, and I will pick up on Rosemary's point that she made earlier during the scrutiny item about moving forward between now and the budget. And I think, again, the collaborative budget process isn't over. We're just, part way through it, because we said we'd bring a paper back to scrutiny. But obviously, the detail now will start to be put together. Well, first off, we need to agree on the consultation that goes out, and then we'll need to work through with what actually goes into, or if it goes into, a collaborative budget for the 29th of February. So I'm happy to propose to Councillor Dean.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to slightly puncture the love in on this, I'm afraid. I mean, I think, first of all, I think that the process of working collaboratively is, of course, a good thing, and the outcomes may well be better. And we've got other examples, for example, the Children's Improvement Board work, where you've got cross-party working, and that's really driven things forward. So that's to be welcomed. My personal involvement in it has been a little bit patchy. I admit that, and that's why my colleague Duncan has in part has led on this. But my experience was that it took a very long time for us to get to a stage where we were actually looking at actual options. There was a lot of learning, which was lovely, but it did take a long time, and many other members did make this point, to get to the stage where we're looking at actual options. And the discussion of those options was pretty brief in terms of where savings might be made. And I also just wonder about the input of other members of the cabinet, because it has been led by a couple of members from each group, but I'm presuming that other members of the cabinet will have an interest in the spending in their own areas, and they haven't had an involvement. All of which leads me to conclude that actually, you know, as we have always argued, the solution to this is to have a proper committee system, which makes this a permanent cross-party process for developing plans for the council.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Dean. I don't actually, and I'm sure Gwilym will probably say the same thing. I think getting to the point of actually looking at the options took longer than expected, perhaps, and I don't disagree with that. And I think that is part of starting a new process, and I think that's, yeah.
I take some of your points, Julian. I wish I had a tenner for every time I stood in this chamber and said I wasn't transparent, and members didn't understand the processes or everything else. And I think part of it was to actually engage members on the process of how the budget is put together and what is involved to start with, so there's that greater understanding. And what I would say is, post May the 1st, you'll probably have 40 to 50% new members who won't know how a budget is put together. And that's why I'd be very keen to go through that process again as we've gone now. When we finally got down to the options and those themes that we are going out at, we're at the bottom of the barrel, you know, and that's where we're at of what we can bring forward, I guess, because it is very, very difficult times.
And I think, you know, we shouldn't underestimate, Councillor Dean, that this situation might get a whole lot worse in 10 days' time. When, I mean, I know I'm surmising, but reading the rooms and listening to what's going on, I have a feeling that our financial settlement will further hinder our progress. Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Sorry, I wasn't going to say anything, but just to confirm, Cabinet are very aware. I mean, I speak to my director constantly about finances and where we're going and projected projects and ideas, and we're absolutely with the Children's Transformation Board that I attend. So just to give you some assurance that I think every Cabinet member has the same, that we are aware of what's happening. And then after collaborative budget meetings, we then briefed as well as informal Cabinet. So please don't think that we're on the sideline not knowing what's going on. Thank you.
No, I didn't pay her to say that, I hasten to add. Thank you, Councillor Hurst-Knight. I think actually, Councillor Dean, if you look at the invites when we went through the original things, you'll see different cabinet members' names popping up on it. But we are a pretty close bunch, so we do have lots of discussions offline. Okay, I have a proposer and I have a seconder for the collaborative budget. Item number 8. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Butler, I'm going slowly. Draft Financial Strategy 24-25 to 28-29. This is a bit of a strange one. When he's got there, Councillor Butler, over to you. Again, I'm happy to second this one.
Yeah.
In advance.
Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio for Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. Leader, this is my 4th time that I'll be bringing the budget in this administration, and I've never been in such a position of, and I think the officers will agree with me, if we don't know what's coming down the road, but it's coming down like a steam engine. And it is not just about the settlement. We had the ministerial letter last week, and there was a lot of smoke and mirrors, you know, taking away the rural services grant, but then giving us money back for deprivation. Is rural deprivation part of their new calculation, I wonder, but we don't know. We then are possibly been aware that we're having a 12-month settlement, but then in March we may well get a 3-year settlement, which will be moulded into the devolution paper. So this will not just be about finance in my mind. This will be, where does the power lie in the midterm financial strategy? Because a midterm financial strategy is for basically 4 to 5 years ahead. Now, we may know where it's going to lie for the next 12, 18 months, 2 years, but where will it lie in 29, 30? You know, if we have a mayor, for example, nobody knows at this stage. So there is a lot of anomalies at this moment in time. In talking with the senior financial team, we did not feel that we could put figures to paper at this stage to tie this council down. And that is why we've gone out for the savings areas to the public to see where we could look to get the savings we need to. And then once we have the settlement, which we believe will be week commencing the 16th of December, mainly the 19th, we might get it a couple of days earlier. I've agreed with the finance team. They have a pro forma already in place to punch those figures in, and it will be shared with all the leaders as well. So you should hopefully know and have that information before Christmas, what the settlement means to us. So the collaborative budget will be ready to set sail again when we're back after the break in January, and it'll give us time to actually think about it. In respect of, I know there's been some words around transparency from the Liberal Democrats. We bought the MTFS Q2 to the last cabinet meeting, where it had a huge amount of information, and we will have further huge amounts of information when we bring the final MTFS following the settlement, etc., back in January. I can also confer that talking with James, that the period 7 figures should be in your hands before Christmas. So that is the next step forward. So, and I'll get those to you as soon as possible, if that makes sense, Chair. So without further ado, I will just move the cabinet recommendations 3.3 to 3.5. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Graham. As I said earlier on, I'm happy to second those. Yeah, not a lot to say really, because we just don't know.
Open trust.
Yes, I appreciate that. Okay, I've got a proposal. I've got a second. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 10, Treasury Management Update Q2. Gwilym.
Sorry about this. There we go. So item number 10 is Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio of Finance, Corporate Resources and Communities. We have a couple of Treasury reports coming forward this morning. The first one is the Q2 24-25 report. Again, this is to bring these reports forward is best management under the SIPFA recommendations. It is purely for housekeeping, and I'm just going to move the recommendations as set out in 3.1. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder for that one?
Yeah, happy to second, Leader.
Thank you. Rosemary.
In at the last moment there. Yeah, I just had a question actually, please. At item 8.4, there's an illustration of a cash shortage at the end of June. I do know from being on audit committee for many years, or well, quite a few years, the council has for some years enjoyed having sufficient cash flow in the system, but things are now different. Please, can you advise how this is being managed to avoid a sort of close occurrence or recurrence?
Historically, as a council, we have been cash rich, and we've used that to our advantages. If you look at other local authorities, generally across the country, they are in the position of which we're just about to go into, and they actually have to use their treasury management in a better structure to actually move it forward. And I think it's covered in the next paper, isn't it, James? The strategy paper, which follows this, actually shows where our borrowing levels will actually go as required. But I can confirm with you that this is normal local government practice. It is not unusual. And I think if you look at neighbouring authorities, well, we would be looking at it in a far superior borrowing position than our neighbours, put it that way.
Pick that up at the next one. Okay, I've got a proposal, I've got a seconder. All those in favour? Okay, so Rosemary, James can probably answer the question as part of the next paper. Item number 11, the Treasury strategy.
Thank you, Councillor Gwilym Butler, Portfolio for Finance. Again, this almost leads on nicely, Rosemary, from your actual question, because it actually is our mid-year review of what we actually need to do moving forward. Everything is laid out in the paper. As I say, you might think it is, you know, a different circumstance for the history of Shropshire Council, but it is putting us in line with other local authorities and how they trade on a day-to-day basis. So I'm happy to move the recommendations as set out in item 3, and I have James here as well if should you wish to have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that one?
Mark Jones, Portfolio for Growth and Regeneration, I'll second.
Thank you very much. James, did you want to pick up Rosemary's question?
Well, I covered it.
Or Jane, sorry, Paul, or you can. Oh, okay. Okay, I'm getting nods. That's all right then. So I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item number 12. Now this caused a bit of consternation. So the title on the agenda says air quality consultation, but actually the title on the report is correct, which is this is to approve the action plan for the air quality issues. So just wanted to make that point because it looks like it's a asking for consultation in the title of the agenda, but it's not. Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, this air quality action plan report is confined to 2 areas in Shropshire, which is the Shrewsbury, which focuses on Castle Foregate, which is the only area in the Shrewsbury AQAP, which is air quality management area, that now exceeds the nitrogen dioxide levels. And the other one is in Bridge North, which targets Pound Street, which is the only area of exceedance within the Bridge North AQMA. This report recommends that these action plans are adopted and responsibility is delegated to the Executive Director of Health, Wellbeing and Prevention for monitoring and reporting on air quality levels and the ongoing implementation of the plans. Responsibility is also delegated to the Assistant Director of Infrastructure and Growth for the implementation of the highway measures. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, Chris. Have I got a seconder for that one?
Councillor Ian Nellens, I'll second.
If I'm right, these action plans were subject to quite a lot of consultation earlier on. I thought I might see a hand from the member for Bridge North, Councillor Hurst-Knight.
No, it's just welcome the report, and obviously this went to we had to change the title because it was the BFG, which we are not allowed to use. So it's the Future Bridge Partnership Group that Councillor Jones from Economic Growth obviously sits on as well. Lots of conversations with all stakeholders from Bridge North, and we welcome the recommendations that are really workable. And so obviously we've massively fed into this document. So thank you.
Chris?
I do believe the one in Shrewsbury should be resolved by next year with the gyratory and everything. So that one should be, and the one in Bridge North is a bit more difficult, but the officers are constantly monitoring it.
Yeah, there are solutions for some, and it's the Bridge North one is more difficult. I'd not realised the BFG thing. Yes, very good. Okay. Julian?
Yeah, just sorry, I thought Councillor Fassman was going to make the point, but just to make the point that it's a bit unfortunate that there's no reference here to the Shrewsbury Moves strategy, which, as I understand it now, is supposed to be, you know, has been adopted, should be informing planning decisions, and certainly should inform this strategy. It's a major part of the Shrewsbury Move strategy is about reducing traffic in town and therefore reducing pollution in town. So it's a little bit concerning that that's not referred to. And then I will ask the question later, but with regard to the use of SEAL and Section 106 when we get to it, but just specifically around this, does this attract any funding as a strategy,
I thought it was mentioned in this report actually, but anyway, Councillor Vasma.
Yes, I think it's really disappointing that the movement to public space strategy is not mentioned in the report, and it should. And I agree with Councillor Dean. It should be a key element because reducing, increasing the active travel within the town would reduce the number of cars and of course have a very good effect on the problems that we've got with pollution. So the other thing I think to say is that Shropshire's record on implementing active travel schemes is not brilliant, and I hope that actually that we can actually get things going and actually make sure that we have better input into getting these active travel schemes going, because that is a key element of reducing the pollution within the town.
Thank you, Councillor Vasma. Councillor Nellens.
Yeah, just to come back on what Councillor Vasma just said about our record on active travel. I think we started from a low base. We've moved quite quickly up the ladder, well, as local authorities can go. But some of the things that are coming forward, and hopefully North West Relief Road with the cycle path as well, will really enhance our active travel. So there's a lot of active travel stuff, and all that does tie in. I have to go through this again because I have definitely seen it. There might have been in the consultation where it referred to the movement strategy, but at the same time, it's that sort of project that helps to take all that NO2 out of the town centre and out of that general area, and the same thing for Bridge North when that can happen as well. So the active travel will take. We do depend on people using it. We are dependent on grants to get there, but we are trying our best with that. And things like getting kids to walk to school, etc., will help to improve the conditions in areas like Bridge North.
Councillor Morrison, then Councillor Hurst-Knight.
Does anyone have any idea what might be a great way of encouraging active travel in Shrewsbury?
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Councillor Hurst. Oh, sorry, you had finished. Councillor Hurst.
Just so Councillor Vasma's aware, only Monday 10 more schools signed up to their very own personalised active travel plans. We're reliant not just on our brilliant team that are working tirelessly, but the community and the schools themselves. So it's not just a quick fix. We want to make this sustainable and right for every single individual school. So just again, Monday, another 10. So please don't make sweeping statements that aren't quite accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurst-Knight. Councillor Butler.
Only in the last month I've set up a working group with my primary school and with parents and the head teacher to actually do what Kirsty's actually saying, to actually champion the cause, putting it onto place plans, looking for other funding, 106 agreements. There's lots of things we can do if we all get together and help the cause.
Thank you. And Chris, do you have an answer?
No, only to go back. I think it's good news that the levels are coming down and that the one issues will be sorted. And I mean, that's good news. As for active travel, I mean, anyone's entitled to take up active travel anyway if they want to do walking and whatever. But bring down the levels, people are more safer.
Can I just ask Rachel, do we have, because Councillor Dean asked if there was any money attached to this?
Thank you. Rich Robinson, Exec Director of Health, Wellbeing and Prevention. Yeah, so a lot of the proposals already use those that are in existence, so it's building on the funding that's already been allocated to various projects. But there was a look to work with local partners to bring in additional funding and work around bringing in additional funding bids where we could, so particularly in areas like Bridge North and others as well.
Rosemary?
Thank you. Yeah, it sounds like a cry for another cross-party committee to look at what we can do on active travel to make the LC whip a reality. I do realise there are initiatives going on, but what we need is a real push forward, and there are signs that the new government are going to be looking to fund that.
It's a shame if the new government look to fund that, but don't look to fund the councils that are delivering it. But anyway, moving on. I have a proposer. I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on now to the Shropshire Infrastructure Funding Statement 2024. Councillor Chris Schofield.
Thank you, Leader. The Infrastructure Funding Statement is a statutory requirement for councils to produce. It must be published before the end of the calendar year. And the recommendations are 3.1. We agreed the Infrastructure Funding Statement included as Appendix 1 to this report for publication before the end of 2024. That delegates responsibility to the Executive Director of Place in consultation with the portfolio holder for planning and regulatory services to agree, if necessary, amendments to the infrastructure funding statement before its publication. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Do I have a seconder for that one?
Yep, I'm happy to second, Leader.
Okay, and once again, can I just make the point that the recommendation will be for sorry, in conjunction with the portfolio holder, and I'll come on to that in a moment. So, Shropshire Infrastructure Statement. Okay, I have a proposer, I have a second. David, sorry.
Thank you, Leader. I was just going to point out that in the statement itself, there is a list of potential projects currently with no SIL allocations, and lots of different schemes. But the thing which pales in significance is, of course, the North West Relief Road, and it's a shame that in actual fact that there are no figures here to give some indication of what sort of monies we're talking about, because I would imagine that an awful lot of SIL money would go into the North West Relief Road, and given the recent auditor's report about the problems we have with it in terms of its costing, and so we still don't have a decision notice, and there's no guarantee of government funding. I would have thought that we would have been a little more detail about how much SIL is going to be used up.
Councillor Basma, I think that question was actually answered in the public questions earlier on. So,
Leader.
yeah.
I think the final business case for the North West Relief Road will still finalise that.
That's the very point that Councillor Morris made at the beginning. Okay, I have a proposer, I have a seconder. All those in favour? Thank you very much indeed. Moving on to the final item, which is the car parking tariffs. Councillor Dan Morris. I say the final item, it's not quite the final item, but.
Thank you, Leader. Between January and April 2024, the introduction of new charges and regulations were discussed on several occasions, leading to a formal advertisement of TROs under the Road Traffic Regulation Act 1984. Consultation took place after the general election, and comments and objections were invited up until the 8th of August 2024. Analysis of these comments leads the report to consider that all but one of the measures agreed in April should be progressed to implementation. The points made basically don't constitute an argument substantive enough to change what was agreed by Cabinet earlier on in the year in April. So, subject to Cabinet approval, implementation will occur as soon as practicable. I move the report and reserve my right.
Thank you very much indeed. Have I got a seconder for that one?
Councillor Ian Nellens, portfolio holder for climate change, environment and transport. I'll second.
Okay, thank you very much. Rosemary?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the report. I note the changes to evening parking fees to assist the nighttime economy for workers, really, and those attending Shrewsbury's many evening venues. I nearly said eating venues, which could also substitute there, I think. It is odd that this has been so hard and taken so long to achieve. I'm disappointed there is no clear table of the proposed charges, that's the current proposed charges, to accompany the dialogue of this report. Despite requesting what must be a readily available document, and given the proposal has been so poorly managed, we are simply offered the outdated proposals of the past, pre-call-in and pre-consultation. Changes are referred to in the text, but no final product has been provided. Without it, this decision cannot safely be made today. So I'm asking that the report returns to Cabinet in January with full and current information about what is proposed in the form of a table listing all car parks.
Okay, thank you. I think the table was in the previous documents. There's been one modification which Councillor Morris outlined. Councillor Morris?
Yeah, so in the email that I received yesterday afternoon from Councillor Dartnell, Councillor Dartnell says in her email that she's fully familiar with the numbers anyway. So it's one very, very small change, and the highways team will follow up on this after.
I'll let you come back, Rosemary.
Thank you. My concern is particularly about the Shirehall overspill car park here, where similar charges were proposed to those at Abbey Foregate, which is crazy. And I've objected to that all the way through this process, but there's no clarity about that. So it may be that while we're allowing a very simple parking charge at Abbey Foregate, we may be charging by the hour in the evening at the Shirehall overspill car park. That is not clear. It's never been very clear in the documents, and I'd like to have it established, please.
Okay.
Advice is it doesn't need to come back to cabinet, and it won't. So
no, I mean I'm not really 100% certain what you're saying, Rosemary. Are you saying that the tariff is different at Abbey Foregate now than it is at the overflow car park?
I don't know. I can't tell from the report. The report.
No, because the only changes. Let me just clarify that the only change we're making is the change to Abbey Foregate and St Julian's Prize. So nothing else has changed. So that's quite simple as far as I'm concerned.
Except that the Shirehall overspill car park and Abbey Foregate were linked in the previous report.
Well, I don't know that they were linked.
They were linked in terms of the same charge.
Yeah, but that's the same charge. They're not linked. It's just the same charge in each car park. So the Abbey Foregate will obviously stay what it was. Abbey Foregate will change. This one won't.
This one will stay as it was in the original proposal.
Yeah, because it's not been modified in the report.
It's crazy.
Well, I'll take that offline with you because I disagree, having seen how many people from the pub are using that car park. Anyway, on that note, I have a proposer and I have a seconder. All those in favour, thank you very much indeed. Moving on to the next item, which is the exclusion of the public and press. Sorry, Rob. And can I ask that Ian, I'm happy to propose that. Are you happy to second?
Yeah, I'm a second.
Okay, thank you. And we will now pause while Rob picks up his